Welcome to all. Today I am going to handle the new area from PSAR. In the previous session, we discussed about the concept regarding PSAR paper 2. Okay. In that part, the international relations, that was the topic we discussed. Today I am going back to the paper 1 into the category of democracy. These are the very common term. You might be heard about this idea of the concept of democracy. So, when you are going to handle the concept of democracy, the most important thing is that the way how UPSC already asked question, because democracy as a subject not only helping student to manage their PSAR paper 1 area, apart from this particular topic is also helping the various principles and the logic and concept behind the concept of democracy help student to write a very good essay in GS paper also, and some part in terms of ethics as well as governance part. So, it is a diversified concept in terms of preliminary as well as in mains as well as in optional paper, in various way it is going to. As a future bureaucrat, you should also need to know in a very clear manner about the ideas of democracy. So, when you are going to start the concept of democracy, the democracy always need to be considered in two particular part. A democracy, a kind of idea, even some people will consider, the Western scholars will consider that there is a kind of idea the people borrowed into the third world countries. It is not the concept developed within the third world countries or the poor countries. People will say something in that manner, that democracy evolved into the category of the northern pole and slowly and steadily entered into the category of third world, and there was a reason also the people will say the failure of democracy in some part of the third world countries, that we have to discuss in various ways. So, while I am going to discuss about the concept of democracy, the most important thing, the concept of democracy need to be in a narrow sense as well as the broad sense. So, in broad sense as well as the narrow sense, I am going to consider the democracy. And in simple manner, if a person is asking what is democracy, generally people will go to the American society from the point of view of Mr. Abraham Lincoln. People will try to give some kind of meaning of democracy by the way of by the people, for the people, of the people. So, this is the kind of concept we can able to say that the democracy is by the people only, and democracy is for the people only, and democracy of the people only. So, in this manner only we can able to discuss about the concept regarding democracy, by the people, for the people and of the people. And in modern sense, when we are looking into the ideas of democracy into the recent development, so I need to classify the concept of democracy before going to enter into this narrow sense and broader sense. I want to classify the democracy in simple manner in order to make people understand about the democracy. It was a democracy kind of idea, I can able to say, into the principles of democracy 1.0. And when I am looking into the same idea into the modernity, the way how the democracy as a concept is existing into the 2.0 category. So, based on this classification, a student can able to understand about the ideas of democracy. So, by the people was once upon a time, the way how the government gave ultimate importance to the people, and government gave ultimate towards the ideas of the objective of their constitution, the way how the government gave ultimate into the category of the welfare and well-being of the people. When those kind of ideas of welfare and well-being was focused by the government in various way, during the time people will say the by the people, for the people and of the people. When these type of concept completely turned into the modernity, I can able to say since at the time of 1990s, the democracy also I can able to divide in two categories, before 1990s and after 1990s. So, when I am going to look into the idea of democracy since 1990s, when the way the concept regarding liberalization, privatization, globalization and all came into exist. On the basis of this particular idea, I can able to give that the welfare oriented government once upon a time The laissez-faire government or the police state government, all those kind of idea we can able here and there. But the most important thing, the government, when they decided to go into the practices of democracy, they started focusing more towards the ideas of democracy and the values of democracy and the ethos inside the democracy. On the basis of the principles of the values and ethics and ethos are existing inside the democracy, the government really want to achieve the concept of taking care of welfare and well-being. That is the real meaning of democracy. But the moment the 1990s scenario came into existence, the way how the world scenario slightly changed into the other direction by the way of moving from the welfare into the category of withdrawal of state. That is another important thing. The withdrawal of state also happening. Here it is welfare. A welfare oriented government, a welfare state. But after that, we are going to discuss into the idea of the liberalization, privatization, globalization, even the process of liberalization, privatization, globalization era completely changed the scenario of government, objective of the government into the category of a welfare focused government turned into the category of withdrawal of government. So here I am not going to criticize the aspect of democracy. Only the activities of the government went down, but the physical or the moral agent, the way how the government is going to take care of about the activities of democracy will continue, but their physical activities are going down. So in this context only, I am saying this is the withdrawal of state, this is the withdrawal of government. There, the main objective was towards welfare of the people. So once this withdrawal of government came into existence, I cannot able to say a government, a democratical practice which is giving the meaning to by the people, for the people, of the people. Sometime there may be a possibility. The failure of the government. I can able to say with the help of Mr. Huntington. The Samuel Huntington is a very popular personality. We are going to discuss in the areas of democracy along with McPherson. He always want to broaden the meaning and sense of democracy. Already this question was asked by UPSC a few years ago. The way how the Huntington want to give a three-way classification for the broadening the methods of democracy or the expanding the methods of democracy. There he will always insist that the first wave, second wave and third wave type of democracy, on the basis of the first and second and third wave, how the process of evolution or how the origin of democracy transformed from one society to another society. So based on this particular idea, I can able to discuss about the concept of democracy once upon a time by the people, for the people, of the people, as per the quotation of Mr. Abraham Lincoln, turned to the category of, in simple manner, instead of by, I can able to say instead of by, we can able to go in different direction. The democracy 2.0 is demanding into a nature by the people moved into the category of buying people, or for the people is moved into the category of far away from the people, and of the people is turned into the category of the people permanently. So a kind of democracy 2.0, the democracy 2.0 is an idea currently existing in various parts of the world. The country who lost faith upon the democracy, or the country or the government who lost faith upon the meaning of welfare on the basis of the modernity into the category of liberalized, privatized, globalized world, that in other way we can able to say the impact of crony capitalism into the area of democratical field, in what way will turn the people or what way it will turn the government into, I can able to give the democracy 2.0 as the best example. By the people as per Abraham Lincoln, LPG era buying people, for the people as per Lincoln era, far away from the people once you won the election, far away from the constituency, and of the people, government is of the people, now turned into the category of permanently of the people from this world, by the way not to ask any questions. The impact of RTA, the other various provisions won't applicable here. So these are all the common scenario we can able to give, we can able to discuss into the category of the concept of democracy. But when I am going to look into the democracy in the very narrow sense, Because democracy is an idea as per Mr. Amartya Sen. He always says that the democracy is having three important things. One is the educative, as well as the intrinsic, as well as the instrumental values. So, a democracy which is having the principles of the educative type of democracy, intrinsic type of democracy and instrumental type of democracy. On the basis of that, we can able to elaborate the ideas, and the narrow sense of democracy need to be considered the way how the democracy is going to give ultimate importance to the concept of the consideration of the people or the welfare of the people in a particular manner. But when this particular aspect, the way how even Amartya Sen in his popular book, The Argumentative India, when he want to discuss about the ideas of democracy, he elaborated the concept like, generally people will say democracy is an idea borrowed it from third world western countries and put it into the category of third world countries. And a well established society inside western world only created this concept of democracy and transformed into the category of the third world country, and it became a compulsion for the third world country to practice those ideas. On the basis of that, in some place democracy was a popular one and in some other place it was a failed one. So, there was a reason. So, as per Mr. Amartya Sen, he is totally against this particular view. Democracy is not a borrowed ideology. There has been a kind of possibility that a society like India, even before the formation of the democratical process from United Kingdom or any other western country, practiced some traditional value system. We can able to have the Buddhist council happen inside the Indian society or other various pluralistic society or other various traditional perspective happen inside the Indian society. We can able to make it as a best example into the category of the narrow sense of democracy as per the ideas of Mr. Amartya Sen. But when I am going to the concept of democracy on the basis of the broader views as per the ideas of Mr. Ambedkar. So, Ambedkar was very particular person. While he want to elaborate the ideas of democracy, and when he considered the society like India, India is a country who always aiming for a political democracy rather than social and economic democracy. So, India was at the very beginning itself is aiming to achieve the concept of political democracy. So, completely transformed or bypassed the various other aspects of economic and social democracy. On the basis of that, it became compulsion that India need to adopt certain methods. So, based on this idea, I can able to say that democracy is a kind of idea to give ultimate importance to the people, ultimate importance towards the right of the people, ultimate importance it want to give to the opportunity the government can able to provide. So, in the broader sense in terms of Mr. Ambedkar, it is not on the basis of the intrinsic or educative or another instrumental manner. The Ambedkar want to give the value oriented system. The value oriented system inside democracy will help to achieve the widen its parameter in various way. On the basis of that, people can able to participate in government, people can able to actively engage in government, people can able to have some kind of faith upon the government is functioning for them only. That is the ultimate thing. Participation of people is the most important thing, but participation can able to achieve on the basis of a mutual assignment of hope between the government and people and government. So, in this sense, I can able to make these are all the very common ideas when you are going to discuss about the principles of democracy. But when I am moving further, so the way how the process regarding democracy is evolved into the very broader sense. So, the development aspect of the expansion nature of the democracy beyond the nature of the broader or narrow sense from the point of view of Mr. Amartya Sen or Mr. Ambedkar. So, when I am going to discuss about the expanding nature of democracy, because democracy is not a static idea. Democracy is a principle is keep on moving. And when a democratical countries are having some kind of element on the basis of the sui generis or suo motu ideas, on the basis of that we can able to have the successful nature of democracy in a particular place. If any idea which is coming from outside the country, if any idea which is inserted into a country, definitely we cannot able to expect the success will always come into that place. There may be a possibility, there may be a kind of failure or shortage of achieving those objective and goals. So, in this context, when you are going to look into the process of democracy, into the nature of the expanding nature of democracy from the point of view of Mr. Samuel P. Huntington. So, Mr. Samuel P. Huntington classified the nature of democracy, the expanding nature of democracy on the basis of three important things. In that, I have to consider the first wave type of democracy and the second wave type of democracy, okay, and the third wave. And once the first wave happened, there is another possibility, the first reverse wave. And when the second wave becomes strong and predominant, then immediately there is an impact of the second reverse wave. And when the third wave becomes popular, immediately the impact of third wave, the third reverse wave. So, these are the ideas. So, when I am looking into the concept of democracy from the point of view of Mr. Huntington into the nature of the first perspective. So, the democracy was an idea slowly and steadily evolved into the nature of the countries like United States of America or some part of the Scandinavian or Nordic countries, I can able to say that. But it became a successful one, the way how Mr. Abraham Lincoln initiated some reforms inside America after the American War of Declaration around the 1780s with the principle of by the people, for the people and of the people. On the basis of that, the expanding nature of democracy become very vibrant into the society of America or even the Scandinavian country who even took the concept of the transparent government and open government around the 15th and 16th century itself is the best example we can able to say the successful nature of democracy. But once this successful nature become popular in those countries, automatically there may be a kind of reversal process also came into exist after the successful impact of the democracy into the countries of USA and all. So, in some western part of Europe, after the First World War got over or the Second World War was about to begin, so some countries who believed in the concept of democracy turned themselves into the category of the next level in the name of authoritarian or autocratic way of life. The best example I can able to say with the help of Germany, Italy and some more areas like the Japan who acted like a democratic country once upon a time turned completely into the category of a imperialistic country. So, the Second World War and during that time the impact of the Second World War completely turned some countries into an anti-democratical country and some other countries into a democratical practice. So, then immediately the second wave started during the time of World War and during that time the concept and elaboration of democracy also expanded into third world countries like India, Sri Lanka and some more countries. As in the reverse process, when you are looking into after the impact of Second World War in second reverse process, we can able to say that the majority of the country who adopted the principles of democracy is not become the successful one. Some countries failed to practice those democratical practices except India. Okay, except India, majority of the country who accepted the principles of democracy inside Africa, inside sub-Saharan region, inside the South Asian region become the failed one on the basis of the impact democracy came from the outside the country rather than automatically or on the basis of the deliberative principle happen inside the society is the best example we can able to say. As per Amartya Sen's word, we can able to calculate this particular idea. Democracy is not an idea came from outside to India. Democracy is an idea we practiced even such a long time with the help of the Buddhist Council or the world most first a republican country, a republican state which elected their kingship on the basis of election first time happened inside one of the 16 Mahajanpadas in the name of Vaisali. So these are the example will say that the democracy is not at all a borrowed idea as per the Western scholars thought process, and as per Amartya Sen, argumentative India, it is a process sui generis on the own basis of Indianness. Based on that become an exception that when world countries who adopted the principles of democracy later failed in the various ways, but India only became a successful country. Then after that way, the way how the third wave process also came into exist. So on the basis of the third wave principle, we can able to see that the democracy completely transformed into another direction. On the basis of that, the democratical element becomes successful in some area and in some other area. So this was a classification made by Mr. Samuel Huntington, and it also asked by UPSC just before COVID only. So there may be a possibility of repeating these kind of questions in classes. We can able to go for elaboration about it. So now there is a basic question. So when we are looking into the idea of the first wave or second wave or third wave as per Mr. Huntington, we need to know that how in India the democracy becomes successful, or in what way democracy become a survived process inside the country like India. The major impact or major important reason we can able to say the first and foremost important principle for the reason for the success of democratical principle inside India is on the basis of the idea of rule of law. Rule of law. I can able to elaborate the principles of rule of law in various ways. But as per Mr. Dacey, A.V. Dacey, the popular personality, as per the concept of Dacey only, the fundamental principles of the Bill of Rights ideology came into existence inside United States of America. By the way, they bought it from the Bill of Rights of United Kingdom 1215. So on the basis of this particular idea, the rule of law is the very foundational things in United States of America, which helped all the 50 states assimilate together into the various directions. So in this particular aspect, I can able to say the elaboration of rule of law is the reason for the success of democracy inside India. How and why? Because the most important thing, the rule of law is saying that there is no arbitrary authority over. There is no arbitrary authority. Arbitration should not be. You should have the sovereignty to make decision. You should have a complete independence to act. That is the idea of democracy. So no arbitrary authority. Then second important thing is that the equal protection the government want to give to everyone. The equal protection the government want to give to every person inside the society. Irrespective of the race, caste, sex, place of birth, gender and other various discrimination, government want to protect every individual in an equal manner is another best example as per Mr. Dacey's rule of law. And the third important aspect, the source for the Indian constitution or the source for the constitution. The source of constitution we can able to say. So when you are looking into the source of constitution, the most important aspect I can able to say from India to America, because when I am talking about rule of law, that became a successful principle to maintain democracy inside American society as well as Indian society. But the most important aspect, the first two principle only existing in India, the third type we are not practicing, that only available in America. Still India can able to survive, because the source of the constitution in India we will say that we the people of India. But in America there is always a comparison we versus I. The individual fundamental rights are more vehement in America, but in India collective fundamental right. On the basis of that, the reasonable restrictions will be given upon Indian fundamental right. That is our democracy, and their democracy reasonable restrictions won't be there until 2001. Fundamental rights are absolute. On the basis of this idea, I can able to say the rule of law is the most important thing. These are the instrumental value which helps the country like India to continue, and the process of democracy survived because of this particular. And other various things we can able to say when you are going to discuss about the concept like survival of democracy inside India. The leadership. The second most important thing, the availability of leadership. We know very well the most of the leaders during the time, even some criticism also about it, Indian democracy and Indian constitution. The politico barrister or the politico-lawyer combination is the deadly combination happen inside India and Indian democratical practices. On the basis of that, the making of Indian constitution came into existence. The enactment of the Indian constitution came into existence approximately on the basis of the 2 years and 11 months and 18 days. Our political figures worked inside to brought an idea like the constitution of the country, which is giving ultimate importance to the democratical values and ethos. So, the leadership is another important idea we can able to say when you are going to look into the idea of the survival of democracy. And the third important thing is that in locally we can able to say that Aditi Devo Bhava, that is a principle Indian people can able to practice everywhere. So, the acceptance of Indians is another most important thing. The tolerable level of Indian is another most important thing. The foundational values, the religion or spirituality is giving upon the Indian society. On the basis of that, Indians are having some kind of broader mind into the category of assimilation of any foreign object. Is another most successful things we can able to say. Generally, when anything is coming from outside the society, people have two notions. The most important thing in a process like democracy, ethnocentric mindset. Ethnocentric mindset. Or some people will have xenocentric mindset. The option like anthropology and sociology, they will elaborate this idea, but political science, we are restricting ourselves into explaining democracy into this particular term. The ethnocentric mindsets are saying that if anything comes from outside, I will reject it immediately. I will say Indian democracy is the best method because we don't need to borrow anything from other country. Our value system is the best example. The plural value system, the traditional value system India had in the past is the best example I can able to say. But when I am going to the xenocentric, anything comes from foreign, people will accept. So, some people will try to borrow things from outside. So, in this nature, the Indian systems are completely on the basis of the acceptance and assimilation of the foreign ideas, starting from the Alexander the Great and even till time, we can have the modulation of the various ideas and assimilation of various principles. Based on that, the democracy as a process continued in India during the time of welfare of the government and withdrawal of the government. So, on the basis of that, we can able to come for the conclusion that the rule of law is the most instrumental idea, the people's acceptance is another most important thing, and the leadership capability is another most important thing. On apart from this, some more various element, the way how the existence of the various princely state, on the basis of that, the acceptance on the basis of the instrument of accession made by our founding fathers during the time of independence, which really want to strengthen the idea of the unitary form of government rather than a loose federation. Even though we are a federal country which is ultimately giving importance to the principles of federalism, the fine part about the federalism is that the concept first time evolved at the time of 1935 Government of India Act, but until 1947 that was not implemented inside the country. After India's independence, our founding father very specifically mentioned about the principles of federation in various ways. Federal country, federalism in terms of center state, but the most beauteous part in that way that they forgot or they failed to define what is federation in the entire Indian constitution. And that may be a negative aspect, that is a very positive aspect we can able to say that help the people to assimilate in various ways. If it is a defined practice, then it may lead to the category of the disintegration of Soviet Russia, a disintegration of Yugoslavia or some other country. But this kind of idea really helped to modulate Indian perspectives from the category of unit and center or unitary and state. On the basis of that, the existence of our government is keep on going on. This is another important reason we can able to say that some more ideas for the successful nature of the existence of a democratical principle inside our country. I think I reduced.